Everybody. We'll call to order the April 23rd, 2026 Budget Committee meeting and regular meeting, 6 p.m. Please call the roll.
Member Garvin.
Here.
Member Smith.
Here.
Member Pratt.
Here.
Member Trapp.
Here.
Member Hyder is absent. Member Leonard.
Here.
Member Redmond. Member Redmond, can you hear us? We'll come back to it, but we can see her online. Member Scales, here. Member Loving,
Here.
Member Budzik, here.
Thank you. All right, so President Garvin could not be here this evening, but he is joining us online. And so with that, I'll run the meeting this evening. And let's all rise for the pledge of allegiance. Treasurer Track, do the honors. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for that. Next item on the agenda is old business. You have old business.
No old business, just the committee discussion for election of the board chair.
Okay, committee discussion.
Sorry, budget committee chair.
Okay, so the board needs to elect a budget committee chair. Obtain a nomination for board budget committee chair. I've nominated you for 2012. Nominate, I didn't hear you say.
I nominate you.
Okay. With that. Second that. That's Treasurer Trap. All right. All in favor of me as board budget committee chair? Aye. Aye. Thank you for that. Next item. Our budget presentation.
Sure. All of you have the newest budget presentation in your books, and also what we'll present online is the newest and updated. I'll start off by saying thank you to everybody on the committee who reviewed the budget, gave feedback. That's very helpful. There were several things that were caught, which is very much appreciated, which is why you have an updated package. So feel free, if you brought one and you've got notes, utilize those for your notes. But please understand that there are a few changes within the new budget packet that are in your packet books. Okay. Member Redmond, we're having a hard time hearing you, so if you could speak a little louder, if and when you key up with questions, we'd appreciate that.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. Can you hear us?
Yes.
And Chief, can we, for the record, have budget committee members quickly introduce themselves?
Yeah. Feel free.
Please.
I'm Walter, but I've done budget committee since inception in 2004.
Bill Loving, same, been on budget committee since inception.
Matt Scales, been on budget committee since inception as well. And Steve Leonard, same from the beginning.
In budget committee, Redmond.
And Janet Redmond on the budget committee since inception as well.
Thank you, everybody.
Great. All right. Thank you again, everybody. Budget committee members and residents of the McMinnville Fire District. As we enter our third full year operating as independent special district, I'm proud to present a balanced budget for fiscal year 26-27. This budget continues the deliberate, disciplined approach we have taken since separation, strengthening our operational capacity while maintaining long-term financial stability. For fiscal year 27, we are projecting steady growth in assessed value, reflecting the continued strength of our local economy. While property tax revenue remains our most stable funding source, we continue to closely monitor economic conditions, state funding formulas, GEMT funding, and EMS reimbursement trends to ensure financial assumptions remain conservative and realistic. Ambulance transport revenue remains a difficult and complex component of our funding model. As in prior years, we anticipate significant contractual write-offs associated predominantly with Medicare and Medicaid. However, our EMS system continues to perform strongly, showing an increase in billable calls and an increase in revenue for the past 3 years straight. And we are projecting consistent ambulance revenue supported by consistent call volume, efficient billing practices, and improved controls implemented over the past 2 fiscal years. Even with these practices, we're still required to subsidize the EMS budget out of the general fund to continue EMS transport operations. Our divisional-based budgeting structure continues to provide transparency in tracking EMS expenditures and identifying opportunities for operational refinement. Let me just mute there. Please.
There we go.
Okay, you need me to anything? There you go. We're good. Member Garvin, can you still hear us? Or Member Redmond? Anybody else on there?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. The 27 budget remains a 5-division structure: administration, fire operations, EMS operations, fire prevention, life safety, and training. This model has proven invaluable in aligning expenditures directly with the service delivery outcomes and strategic priorities. We will continue to incorporate contingency with our overall expenditures to ensure operational flexibility without jeopardizing general fund stability. Personnel costs remain our largest investment, and appropriately so. Our commitment to maintain 3-person engine staffing has significantly enhanced firefighter safety, response effectiveness, and service delivery. As we move into fiscal year 27, we will focus on sustaining that staffing model, support our resident volunteer program and volunteers, and ensure competitive compensation to recruit and retain highly qualified professionals in a challenging labor market. Rising PERS rates, health costs, and insurance premiums continue to present statewide challenges, and we have budgeted responsibly to account for those increases. Debt service obligations remain stable and predictable. Station 15 continues to demonstrate its value both as an operational asset and a long-term investment for the district's future. Its addition has improved deployment capabilities, enhanced administrative efficiencies, and positioned us well for growth in the future. This next fiscal year, you will see changes in Station 15 as we begin the building phase of the fire station part of the building, significantly decreasing response times to our rural fire district areas. During the past fiscal year, the district accomplished several important objectives. We fully implemented 3-person engine staffing, successfully reestablished and supported our resident volunteer program, continued modernization of fleet replacement, strengthened regional partnerships to improve rural ASA coverage, enhanced firefighter health and safety initiatives, advanced long-term capital planning and apparatus replacement forecasting, and maintain a strong labor management collaboration under our IAFF Local 3990 agreement. We have also continued refining our financial forecasting tools to ensure we're planning beyond a single budget cycle. Our multi-year projections help us anticipate capital needs, facility improvements, and apparatus replacement timelines without placing the unexpected burdens on our taxpayers. We also implemented a 6-month look-back exercise this year to make sure our expenditures are on track and adjustments can be made as necessary. The proposed fiscal year 27 budget reflects stability, sustainability, and forward-looking planning. It prioritizes core emergency response services while protecting fund balances and preserving our ability to respond to unforeseen challenges. Our focus remains unchanged. Promote a safe environment, preserve life, property, and provide services for the public's benefit. I'm proud of the progress we've made in a short period of time as an independent district. The foundation we built together with the support of the board, budget committee, all staff, and community positions the McMinnville Fire District for continued success. Thank you for your time, your oversight, and continued support of the McMinnville Fire District. Now we're gonna move into the specific portions of the budget. Crystal's gonna go over, if you turn to page 9, Crystal's gonna go over, really just an overview of this. That kind of explains the changes we made this year. As you all know, we're an evolving fire district. We make ourselves better every year. It's trying to make ourselves better every year. We made some changes this year in our budgeting platform to kind of allow us to better foresee, project, and then also show transparency in our purchases and our budgeting practice. So with that, turn it to Crystal.
Good evening. Thank you, again, for your review of the budget. I really appreciate it. Whenever you're putting a whole bunch of pages together, it's like, did we get everything or not? And so, thank you. I appreciate your time. So as you looked at the budget this year, it probably looks a little bit different than it has in the past, and that was intentional on the chief's part. He had some things that he wanted incorporated that weren't incorporated in the past budget, and whenever I first came onto the district, he said, I want these things, and I said, okay. And so throughout this budget, I couldn't do them immediately, right? That's a lot of people for staff and everyone else. So we agreed that we could wait till the budget. So thanks for your patience. And during this cycle, we established 3 new funds. And the intention behind those funds was to help everyone understand how the money flows a little bit easier. So the 3 new funds that were passed by resolution earlier by the board this year is our capital fund for Station 15 that is going to be funded by lottery dollars, our vehicle replacement reserve fund, and then the debt service fund. One of the questions along the way, and I'm not going in any order because to me it's all just money, so thank you for following with me. The debt service fund, the goal was, how do we know which debts are expiring in which year? And how do we make sure that we're not spending more in debt service year over year and that we've got it in? So we do have some items that are no longer in our debt service schedule because this June is actually the last time we have to pay for those. And then we have one that's expiring the next fiscal year. And so it's easier to see in that debt service fund. So when we get there, I'll explain that a little bit more. As far as the vehicle replacement piece, the goal was, okay, Crystal, we have money that we were given from Conflag and we have sold some assets. How do we capture those dollars and make sure that they're set aside for future purchases so that we're not using one-time revenues on operations? That was the goal. So that's a huge step to be able to do that for the district. And then the third item was the Station 15 project, right? Well, we have anticipated about $200,000 that we need for architecture and engineering pieces. And then how do we set aside money for that and then budget for the actual capital and improvement money that we're going to get in next year? So those are just kind of outside of operations, the logic that went into putting those funds together. Okay, so if you'll move to the next page, I'd really appreciate it. The intent of this page within your budget is a summary of the general fund. And I'll tell you, I hesitate to put charts in proposed budget because inevitably something doesn't balance and we get to redo them 3 times. However, thanks to the staff for that. So here, the goal of this is to show the general fund, okay? And that even though with all the changes that we made, that your general fund is steady and being managed appropriately, right? You have a little bit of increase year over year. Okay, you would anticipate that because you have increase in property tax revenues, and you should anticipate increases at least a bit in your EMS revenues, right? For GMT dollars that come in, those type of things. So that's what this chart is representing, is that we're kind of on track. So before we go any further into each of the funds, I'm gonna pause there, see if anybody has any questions about the overall goal. Okay. Your turn.
Okay. We are gonna go into the meat and potatoes then. So if you could turn to page 13, again, I already read to you guys, that's my reading for the year. So I'm not gonna read, I know you all can read. We call them cover pages, the cover pages of each fund is just to kind of give you a general overview of what the intent of each one of these funds are. And when you see the cost drivers are predominantly not necessarily changes per se, but really what the big tickets are in that budget line, if you will. So that's kind of what we do. Is just if you guys wanted to look at it quickly to say, well, what does this entail? That's kind of the overview of that. If you turn to page 15, which is the meat and potatoes that Crystal and I are going to tackle together. What I want to do is I just want to go through this. I'm going to highlight the changes or significances of this portion of the budget. And then, of course, Crystal will have an opportunity if I missed anything, which is very likely. And then, of course, we'll stop at each one and answer questions before we go to the next. So the first one we come across is the general fund. And some notable changes. You'll see at the very top, the low SAP balance is no longer there, and it was the 900,000. It was being budgeted in our budget in the past. That's the volunteer retirement fund, and it really belongs to the volunteers. So we're working with them to change that into their ownership. And of course, assist them any way we can. We still pay into that. You'll see that later into the budget as an expenditure, but that's their money, and we really shouldn't have been tracking that money as we had in the past. So that's why you see that in another thing you'll see, line 6 is purses. If they ask, you're going to have to answer what it stands for. But just at our last board meeting, I'm not going to get into the details, but when we build big commercial buildings here in town, they have to put in radio capabilities inside those buildings. There's a cheaper and more efficient way to do it. It falls on the fire department. So instead of them having to build hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of infrastructure in these commercial buildings, they pay us and we buy vehicle repeaters. And that allows us, there's only 3 right now in the McMinnville Fire District, 3 buildings that have those. But these vehicle repeaters, they'll pay us instead. We put vehicle repeaters in our vehicle, and those help us on all calls in the entire district, no matter where we are at. So that's a new line item. That is a revenue side of the line item, and then you'll see an expenditure later on. I think the other important part that I want to talk about is there it is, transport fees, line 9. You see a revenue of 4.4 million. The good news, that's an increase from all the previous years. The other good/bad news is this year we billed just very little under 16 million in billable calls. And so we're writing off, you guys can do the math, tens of millions of dollars, predominantly secondary to Medicare and Medicaid. It costs about, we bill about approximately $2,500 per call. Our need to break even is about $1,100 per call, and we average about $550 in receipt. So if you do the math, that don't matter. So unfortunately, again, year after year, we have to subsidize that, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, but we have to subsidize that with general fund. What that means is that takes away from our fire protection, which is very difficult because in our 98 square miles, we have 1 career pension company. It's subsidized then by all of our volunteers, our great volunteers, and student resident volunteers. And there will become a point in which those 2 just don't work anymore. We are working very hard with our federal partners, our state partners, and our county and local partners. In fact, we have a meeting next week with the county. Everybody has been very receptive to the issue. Everybody completely understands the issue. But no one has said this is how we fix the issue. And we're trying to be part of that solution, not part of the, the rhetoric, if you will, but be part of the solution. What can we do to help change this? Because we can't continue to bill 16 million and receive 4.4 million. We need more engine companies. We need a truck company. We need more career staff. as along with our volunteer staff. So with our career staff, our volunteers, and our students, we can get an entire first alarm assignment out the door ourselves and not have to rely on our mutual aid partners that are farther away than within our district. And it also allows us to spread our resources to the north end of McMinnville, here on the east end, and then of course our downtown station. You guys are welcome to stop me at any time if you have any questions. But also on that note, I also want to have a couple key points because I think this is an important time for me as fire chief to talk about our staff and what we do. We are not sitting back doing nothing. When I came in, we were billing several million less than this. We made some operational changes. The crews have really stepped up to the plate. They run more calls. They work harder. They're getting service faster. They're taking care of the community to the best of their ability. Our billing staff is getting the bills out the door quicker. Our billing contractor is billing more calls. Last month was our highest billable, I'm going to use the right word, charts out the door in the history of the McMinnville Fire District. That's 602. 830 charts. That means they wrote, our medics and EMTs wrote 830 charts. We were able to bill for 602 of those. That's the largest in history. We continue to set records for the amount of income that we receive. But what's crazy about that is in all these years where we've increased our ambulance billable calls by $4 million from 2.5, 3 years ago, we've got about 900,000 in additional revenue. So we're still writing off that almost 12, $13 million in ambulance revenue. So I say that to this committee because many people say, well, what have you done? Or what are we doing? And I can tell you, our crews are working their butts off. Our billing staff and our contractors are working theirs off. And we, as admin, are working ours off with our elected officials to find out, try and find a path forward to that.
Chief, could you give just a brief overview of GMT, what it is, how it works, and why it's not fully sufficient?
Yeah, can I get there in GMT?
Oh, of course. No,
I'm happy to.
I thought you were moving on.
Yeah, we'll get there. GMT, I think, is on the next page, but I'm happy to jump.
Doesn't.
January was our largest billable month in history. Revenue in history, 500,000. We average about 360,000 a month. That's what we do our budgeting on. So just to kind of put it in perspective, there's a lot of reasons for that. Maybe, old charts came in and those type of things. But again, we are doing everything in our power to right the ship. And there's not many more nuggets for us to pick up and play. Conflagrations is the next item, 16, 17. Conflagrations, we've seen nothing but an increase in conflagration response. Yandell County is the top 2 counties requested by the state of Oregon for conflagrations. Our volunteer staff, our career staff, our students, as well as our Yandell County partners, time and time again, send out multiple task forces here. We've hit these numbers of revenue both from the personal services side and the vehicle side for the last 2 years. So we're comfortable where we're at there, but I just think it's important to show that is something that is an every year occurrence now. But it also was important to me why we created the vehicle replacement fund that we'll get to, is so we can start tracking those. We sell a vehicle or we get those reimbursements from the air show or from conflagrations or such, that allows us to replace our vehicles on a much more sustainable and frequent basis. See an increase in my, yes, ma'am.
Going back up to the previous section, I know you're going to talk about GEMT later, but was there any one particular item that's driving the forecast of an additional $1 million in the GEMT for CCO line?
Yeah, I can jump on that now. There's lots of questions. Yes, to answer your question, GEMT is about 3 years back on payments. But I want to start with what is GEMT, Ground Emergency Medical Transport fees. So the federal government at some point realized we're not paying, in our case, tens of millions of dollars in dollars due to Medicare, Medicaid. So it's kind of their way of trying to help us right that ship. So the federal government gives the state money, and the state manages that money, and fire-based EMS can bill for those, which again, we're gonna talk about here in a minute because of how we budget a little bit differently, but for every call that we go on, we can get a subsidy, or we can put in for a subsidy, if you will, that it's a Medicare Medicaid type issue. And we budget historically about $750,000 a year, because that is what we should historically and theoretically speaking by our calls for service expect. It's a little bit of a goofy scheme. We pay them money to get money back. Little different, if you will, but we've continued to pay those fees every year, which is in some cases about 160 on 1,000 on one, and I don't know, somewhere around 30-ish thousand or so on the other one. There's two. There's a fee for service and the CCO. We've been paying those, but we haven't been getting the reimbursements. I'm not going to get into why, but unfortunately, the state is behind. We did work with our state partners on that issue, and literally very short, and not just us, we were part of it, but us, Board of Fire Chiefs, the IAFF, have been working at the state level, and they've made some pretty significant changes, and they're almost caught up. So, Member Redmond, to answer your question specifically, they have actually paid us for 2 years, and we'll get another year and a half in the fiscal year. That normally we would only get that one, it's 2 payments, but one total lump sum of $700,000. So, Member Smith, did I answer your question?
Yes, they're catching up, and eventually will be closer to on time. Maybe
you should see next year, not what we're talking about today. Next time you see me in a year, you should see that about $775-ish thousand a year, unless of course their rates and stuff change. Member Redmond, is that good?
yes.
Okay. Again, back to 20, you see an increase in that. We are adding, I'll just say a different cell provider to our tower at downtown at Station 1. That provides income to us. There was a question, which is why I wrote this down, about paid leave Oregon. You see to the left what the question specifically is your year-end projection is 70,000. Why are you budgeting 135,000? Paid leave Oregon is a very, very, very difficult thing to track. And the reason being is it's really if an employee has an unfortunate event. We've only spent 70,000 to date, but we currently literally today have, I believe, 2 off today. One will be off in a week or so, and then another one going off a little bit later. They're all paid leave Oregon events, if you will. So it's super cyclical. I mean, we could do none in a year, and we could go to 300,000-400,000 in a year, unfortunately. So we do our best to our best guess, if you will. But that's why you see an actual, which we get it again today, that actually still wouldn't be actual because we do have a couple people off, but actual versus budget. And then the other big ticket you see is line 30, which is our tax revenue anticipation note. That's what we do every year. That gets us from July to about December 1st. We've done it the last 2 years. We've paid it off in full, complete in December every year. So we'll do that again this year. The goal for everybody in this room, I'm speaking as fire chief, is we will continue to increase our contingency money and our cash carryovers, which will then decrease the need of this trailer, if you will. As a brand new fire district, needing new equipment, new additional firefighters to an engine, those types of things, those outweigh the current ability to do that. So we have and will continue to increase our contingency, you'll see, and increase in other areas that's needed for our firefighters, protective clothing, those types of things. But this is what gets us to
Chief, is there an opportunity, because with a $2 million ending fund balance projected, or a beginning fund balance of $2 million, to reduce that loan maybe by $1 million, so using half of that beginning fund balance instead of a loan to reduce those interest costs?
there's always absolutely that opportunity if that was the desire of the budget committee and the board. I recommend against it because that's a lot of that $2 million is going to operational costs such as purchasing of ambulances and things like that are $425,000 a piece, and we need them now. We need them actually before July 1st, but that's when we can budget for them. And those are big ticket items that need to be purchased right after the beginning of the fiscal year that will very quickly dwindle that $2 million. And so, is it an option if that was the desire of this group? It absolutely is. It wouldn't be my recommendation because again, we have 7 ambulances at 200,000 miles, and we pay a lot of money in maintenance. We average about 90,000 miles per vehicle per year in drive time in our 450 square mile annual service area, as well as our transports out to Portland and Salem and other surrounding hospitals. So, Member Redmond, yes, it was the recommendation. It is absolutely something we could consider.
Thank you.
Christopher,
Great.
is there any questions? Great. We will go to General Fund Administration, page 17. On page 16, kind of the big cost drivers, obviously in any of our budgets, whether it's administration or operations, is our wages and benefits, our audits, our IT services, which we still actually have a savings from what we were paying before. A big ticket item, which we'll talk about here in a second, is our YCOM user dues. Those are actually proposed to go up 15% this year. And I believe they went up, if I remember correctly, 12% last year and 8% the year before. And those are big hits. We're 62.7% of YCOM's fire budget. The next closest, I believe, fire payer in YCOM is, I believe, it was 11%. So we're a very large payer.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
The YCOM 15% increase, is that personnel costs on there? So
I think it's predominantly, yes, to answer
you're
your
doing
question.
capital stuff over there.
Yeah, it's predominantly personnel. I believe they're trying to add back some FTEs that may have gone away in the past. And then just like us, they have significant cost increases from their insurances and retirements and things like that. So. Not a lot on the top that's pretty self-explanatory. It's our wages, benefits. I will call out in here, you will still see, I believe most of you know, in July, Social Security was voted out. So we are no longer paying into Social Security, but we're still in the process of negotiating that. And we have been served with an arbitration. But the point of this is we keep it in there so that no matter what happens, we can accommodate the needs of whatever comes of that process or processes. And then just down below, the new one, the accounting services, that is Crystal's position. If you look back in the budget, you saw us with one less FTE. That was our finance manager. In which Crystal as a contractor is filling that role. So that's where you see the difference in budget from an FTE down to the accounting services. And again, the other big ticket item I had in there was the YCOM services. We did increase, some of you may have seen on the news before our budget committee meeting, that we did increase our fuel. About 50 grand, like that 30, 40, something like that grand. Just due to the uncertainty of the fuel.
Is that a big enough an increase? I mean, everything we're seeing is, even if they ended everything tomorrow, gas prices aren't going to come down anytime soon because the oil market is so displaced and messed up for a while.
Yeah, good question. And the answer is yes, I'm comfortable with it. What we did was we took that largest month at the highest rate ever, and we multiplied that by 12. So even, I mean, if it went up significantly more from here, then that might be an issue, but at some point it will come down. So I am comfortable taking our highest 11. We average between $7,000 and $7,500 a month in fuel. Last month we were at 11,200. We took that 11,000, I believe it was almost exactly 11,200. We multiplied it by 12. So we used worst case scenario. Likely won't stay that for the entire 12 months, but if it did, we would. Did that answer your question, Member Redmond?
We actually took 10.
Sure. 10,400 multiplied. Did I miss anything on that? She's really good. This Scott, great. Fire. Page starts on page 19. Again, as in every budget from admin on personal wages and benefits, significant wage benefit increases in insurance, PERS, all those. That's normal. That's not us. Nothing anybody's doing. It's just the matter. Vehicle maintenance and protective equipment. Again, not a lot to call out here. Down line 42 and 43 are vehicle repairs. Just increase that slightly for the increase in cost of parts and maintenance. We do have our own full-time mechanic, so that doesn't change. And then, of course, protective clothing increasing that slightly every year because they don't get any cheaper.
Chief, I noted that overtime on line 3 is going up significantly over this year's budget and what your projections are for this year. Is there a reason? Are we thinking we're going to be down some people that we need to have more overtime?
Yeah, so good question. So this has to do with, it's actually not, it's smoke and mirrors, if you will. And what I mean by that is when we talked about GEMT, the Ground Emergency Medical Transport Funding, we switched where some people were in our budget because that way we could build for them. We could build more for them. What we saw was a decrease in our GEMT funding. And when we went back and looked, it's because we do an 80-20 split. So 80% of our firefighter EMT medics can be billed to GEMT. 20% is just fire related, so we don't bill for that. And then we have 2 employees that are 100% billed to GEMT. So we switched those around so that we could capture more of that GEMT funding and more of that 80% of those individuals. So they're moved out of one side of the budget, put in this side of the budget so that we can bill for that.
And then I'll add a little bit.
Thank you.
So also with overtime, with the increase in conflict, the conflagration dollars that we're spending outside of the district, that's a line of 150,000 you'll see on line 6. And then we have overtime, for coverage, just regular coverage for people that aren't there. So it really is like, how do we budget and track what's actually happening? Because in the current fiscal year, we have right-sized it a bit, but we can do better, we believe, by the consistency and the coding as we do payroll. So it really is more of an accurate accounting.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions on that? I have one more thing. If you look at line 54, that $30,000 is the other half of that vehicle repeater. So you saw the income side. This is actually buying vehicle repeaters for our vehicles listings here.
And we did that in 2 fiscal years. The current fiscal year for 30,000 on line 54, and then next fiscal year as well, so that we could capture both.
We do have a projected building. I guess you guys could all look out the window and see that is one of our payers. That will come in this fiscal year, which is why we captured that. And then we think, Ty, do we have 2 additional buildings next year?
Just one.
So we have one building that would meet that criteria, so that would be setting it up. I just lost my place. That's right. Alright. Page 22. Again, nothing secret here, wages, benefits. Uniforms, we increased those a little bit, just due to the price increases. Certification training, medical supplies and pharmaceuticals. We did do one thing last year, and our poor staff, utmost respect, they were literally had 3 computer monitors up trying to find the best deal we could get for our supplies that they were ordering. They literally did that day and day, just trying to save the district money. When I saw that, I thought there's going to be a better way than that. And so what we did was we entered into a contract that's a state bid contract. So we get the lowest bid rate already, and we can capitalize if we find it somewhere else for cheaper. They honor that as part of the contract. So the poor staff, when I say staff, it was actually line staff that's doing that. They can run calls, save lives, and protect property, not have to worry about how much pay they use. I don't really have anything else of a big note, unless there's questions on it. Or there's one. Okay, good to move on. General fire prevention and fire and life safety. Really same public education materials, wages and benefits, trainings and conferences. There was a question on the salaries on this one, so I'm just going to call it out. There's 2 reasons for that. We budgeted top step for every position because many times we have a person retire and or we have an individual that's new, is that maybe step 2 type thing. They go to another organization. We bring in somebody with experience. We have to pay them step 4 or 5 or something like that. As well as we have a 4% increase for all employees this meeting in July. So good questions on that, but that's kind of the difference. Last year, our budgets were significantly tighter, so we really budgeted at actuals, which isn't a good way to budget because in 3 cases already this year, we've hired people with experience, and they did not start step 1. Start step 2 or step 3 or 4. Training. Certifications for our medics, EMTs, classes, our drill tower, we own the drill tower where it's currently located. It's on city property. We have a 99-year lease. It's probably about 96 years now, 97 years. But we own the building, so we maintain the building, and the city owns the property. Our resident volunteer program, as well as our volunteer program, fall under this. They're supervised and managed by the training chief. That is all I have for training, unless there is. Now you're tired of listening to me, so you get to listen to Crystal. She's got a nice list.
Thanks. Okay, so you'll see a bit of changes in our non-departmental fund, our section of the general fund. The purpose of this is to say everything that's not one of the other items, right, that we can allocate to those specific places, and is more of a general expense to the organization. This is where we're budgeting for that. Okay, so the first changes that you'll see is I'm just going to stop on that personnel services portion of it. Is that okay? So you'll see on the left-hand side how there was $1.9 million in 23-24, and there's significantly less going forward. Okay, that was intentional because we didn't have any of the PERS or health-related expenses broken out among the different divisions. Instead, they were all here under non-departmental. And therefore, we couldn't bill for or capture the GEMT revenues because our wages weren't loaded in the budget document. So we fixed that. That's the first section. Okay, next section, materials and supplies. Those are now shown in each of the different divisions, so there doesn't need to be a section here. The same for services and utilities and overhead. Okay, so that's kind of the logic that's tracking. And then the next section is capital outlay. So we've intentionally set aside some dollars for ambulances. You've heard about those. One of those is set aside here, as well as some radios or station alert equipment. So depending on whether radios are needed or station alert or which one we get actual grant dollars for, then that's captured here, as well as the majority of the first ambulance. We didn't put it in the vehicle reserve fund because it's not one-time revenues exactly the same for that, okay?
A quick
And
question.
then- Yes, ma'am?
Page 31, under your what's new, capital outlay is anticipated for the fiscal year in the amount of 150,000. But then the detailed budget page has 500,000. What's the difference between the two, or is the 150 referencing a different line somewhere
Thank you
in
very
the
much.
cover note?
We'll fix the narrative because the narrative was written before this version of the 500,000, and the difference is the 350,000 set aside for the ambulance that we believe we're going to be able to get when the GEMT money rolls in. But if we don't get the full GEMT money amount, then we won't get the second ambulance. That makes sense.
Okay.
Thank you for the question, and I'll fix the narrative on the next version of the budget. Okay? Debt service is the next section. As I spoke earlier, it will still be paid through property tax revenues, but we'll do a transfer out of the general fund into the debt service fund for only the debt service payments for the year, but we won't track debt service in the general fund any longer. The only debt service required by law to be tracked under Oregon's local budget law is if it's funded by bonds. So we just kind of wrapped everything together. If you did have bonds, we would need a debt service fund for those bonds. Just as an FYI for future years. And then here's our transfers out section to each of those different items. And we'll talk about the revenue in when we get to those funds, but it's expense out here. Currently, operating contingency, we budgeted in the current fiscal year for $500,000 through a supplemental budget resolution. We have reallocated that to take care of the personnel costs items that we needed to. Here we're budgeting 600,000, so that is an increase in your contingency year over year, so that's great. And then our ending fund balance is right at $1 million. As a matter of comparison, I suppose, in 24-25, you had $1.16 million of the ending fund balance in the current fiscal year. 900,000 of that was LoSAP budget, and so by having a $1 million budget of ending fund balance for the next fiscal year, you're moving in the right direction. So I'll pause there. That was a lot of numbers. Okay, are there any questions or shall we continue?
I see move on faces.
Okay, debt service fund. Thanks, Donna, for you're doing great. Okay, so as I stated, we're going to transfer in from the general fund $5.46 million to cover the debt service for the next year. There is no ending fund balance for this fund because I don't believe it's best to grow it. Rather, we're only going to transfer in the amount that we need. These are based on the amortization schedules that we've gathered over time. There's probably a couple, $200 to $500 that I've increased just in case there's a timing difference, but I don't expect there to be. So, this should be pretty consistent with where we are. Next is the capital project fund for Station 15. So items to note is the $3 million state lottery funds for House Bill 5204. That is special one-time revenues that the district has been awarded. However, there is some preliminary work that needs to be done. So we are transferring in $200,000 from the general fund to get that project started. And then you'll see that in the capital outlay section, which is in line 20, there's $500,000 budgeted. That is not general fund dollars, that is state lottery dollars. And then we put the remaining in reserves, because you can't get to it in any fund balance for budget law. So it's in reserves. We don't think that'll be spent in the next fiscal year, but in the event that we needed to, it's possible there versus not in fund balance. So, that'll be year one of the project. How many years do you have?
24 months, I think.
Okay, perfect.
Is there enough in there to fund project in entirety, or are we gonna have to put money in there in the next several years as well?
Yeah, to this fire station portion of it, the answer to that is yes. If and when we do a complete seismic of this specific building, that would be a different, fiscal impact.
How would that be another grant or from another fund or something like that?
Yeah, but from what we have gathered from, we're using McKinsey Group, from our, preliminary drawings and such, for that project, the standalone project, yes.
So you could stop if you had to stop, if you need there was no more money later.
That's accurate. Theoretically speaking, but yes, that's accurate.
Right.
Okay, and then the last one is our capital reserve vehicle replacement fund. So this was, I would say, one of the first items that I asked me for when I was brought on board, probably about 10 months ago, is how do we capture all of the dollars that we have been paid for conflag, vehicle sales, that type of thing, and how do we make sure that that money is set aside and not used for operations. And so through the budget process, we were able to do that, and the board passed a supplemental budget resolution showing the transfer in of the $250,000. You can see that our projections for the current year are $229,000. That's me rounding to actual, right? $250,000 to $229,000. So I expect the $229,000 to be where we are, unless something else, changes. So that's great. Additionally, and with that same intent, we anticipate that the conflag revenue for next year for the vehicle reimbursement portion would be $100,000. So we wanted to show that money coming in. If we only get $85,000, then we'll transfer in $85,000 instead of $100,000. That means into that. And then also we wanted to purchase that second ambulance. That's the $450,000 that's there. So that's the revenue side. Okay, the expense side is shown below. Under capital outlay, we bought a mechanic truck. $4,000 is going to be spent in the current fiscal year in the general fund. The remaining balance is due by July 15th and will be spent out of this vehicle reserve fund out of the one-time revenues. Okay, so if it were me, I would say, well, what did we spend one-time revenues or operating revenues on the first $44,000? one-time revenues. That's why the 229 versus 4,000 more. Okay, so we did use one-time revenues for that. And then we have our ambulance, with the upgrades and lights and stickers and all the things that you can add to an asset to make it one total is $450,000. And then another vehicle and our
It's potentially a brush rig. We weren't sure if we had to replace the motor. It's the second motor we put in one of our brush rigs. So this allows us, if needed, we could replace that brush rig if it goes bad again this summer because it's already gone bad to us. So we did put a brand new motor in it this year. It seems to be working well, but it has been put under stress.
So we used our beginning fund balance or the current year transfers to pay for that brush rig. With that in mind, rather than leaving it in ending fund balance, we put the remaining, our 139,000 into reserves. So that way we have it carry over into the fiscal year, next fiscal year.
Will this budget look similar in future years to continue replacement programs for equipment?
That is absolutely correct.
And earlier, the question was asked whether or not we should reduce our tax anticipation loan. And the chief and I talked about that, and I agree with the approach that you're using right now, as it's been presented in the budget, because it's conservative and you're able to take care of the needs that you have, and it gives you a little bit of room. By paying the loan off early, then you're not paying interest on money that you need, so that's really great. By leaving the money in the LGIP account, you're able to earn interest on the money that you have and aren't using, that's great. But in the same aspect, you're able to take care of the operational necessities of, ambulances and that type of thing. So kudos to everyone for all the work that you're doing for that.
After you take LGIP earnings, what's the net cost of that?
About, if I remember correct, I knew you were gonna ask it, so I knew it. I believe we pay about 150,000, 160,000 in interest, and I believe we get about, I think it's like 80 or 90, it's like 60, 70,000 that we pay after the revenue off the corporate side, investing revenue. So it's not a true 170-ish thousand because we do get that interest.
Quick question. Does that loan usually have an early prepayment penalty, or if things work out and can we pay it off early to reduce the interest cost?
No, we do that every year. To answer your question, it's a 1-year Tran loan from July 1st to June 30th. We have 2 payments, a December payment and a June payment. We pay it off, and we have paid it off every year in December without fail in full. So we save about $135-ish thousand in interest every year with no penalty. We wrote the contract specific to no penalty. They don't like it because they don't get all the interest back. We've got a great partnership.
And that concludes our budget presentation.
Questions? Comments?
We go.
Sheriff Smith, I think when we would go to any comment.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. Thank you for the presentation. At this time, we'll go to public comment. We'll open up public comment.
Other than chat.
There are people online for lines of comment.
Okay, I'll start. Is there anybody online that would like to make public comment? If so, please raise your hand. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to make public comment? You don't have to raise your hand. I'm up front talking. All right, no.
Okay, no public comment, so thank you for that. And move on to new business.
So point of order, we will need a motion, correct? A motion for the both A and B
Okay,
as read,
the action required for business.
correct?
Okay. So, I will read this, need a recommendation. And a motion, recommendation that the budget committee of the McMinnville Fire District approve the budget for 26-27 fiscal year in the amount of $32,177,668. So move. So move. Do you have a second?
Point of order, real quick, we want to make sure that's,
In order?
we're in order.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in
Second.
favor?
Janet, second.
Okay, we already have a second, Janet, thank you. So we're in order, we have a motion, and a second for $32,177,668, 26-27 fiscal year budget. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
And we'd say, where else?
Motion.
Yes. Please.
Next item B. The motion, recommendation to the budget committee of the McMinnville Fire District approve property taxes. 26-27 fiscal year at the rate of $2 per thousand of assessed value with a permanent tax rate levy upon the assessed value of all taxable property within the McMinnville Fire District boundaries.
No motion.
Yeah. Budget committee, Loving made the motion, do we have a second?
Second.
That's it. So, a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries, thank you. Okay, so next meeting is Thursday, April 30th, 2026. With that,
That's
That what you need is that only,
okay,
so our next budget meeting will be next year, 2027.
okay, that concludes budget meeting for this year. With that, thank you, Fire Chief Godfrey and your team, Crystal, thank you very much, and budget committee as well, for your work, appreciate it.
We're gonna take a 5-minute break, we'll reset, and then be back. Not before